Welcome back, everyone. We're diving deep into the world of Philippine politics today.
Sounds intense.
It is, but fascinating too. We're looking at how presidents use military appointments to, well, basically grab more power.
Ah, the age-old game of politics.
Exactly. And our guide for this deep dive is a research paper called Hyperconstitutionalism and the Military.
Catchy title.
Right.
Yeah.
Now get this. In the Philippines, a single senator can just stop a military promotion in its tracks. No explanation needed.
Seriously, that sounds, powerful.
It is, and it all ties into this concept of hyperconstitutionalism.
Okay, I gotta ask, what is hyper-constitutionalism exactly?
Well, it's basically how different parts of the government, like the president versus the legislature, use the Constitution itself to wrestle for power.
So it's like they're all playing by the rules, but maybe bending them a bit to get their way.
You got it. Imagine a high-stakes chess match. The paper focuses on this tug-of-war between the president and the Commission on Appointments,
Yeah.
the CA, when it comes to who gets promoted in the military.
Right, because the president gets to pick who they want in those top spots.
Yeah, but the CA has to give the thumbs up. It's this constant check and balance.
Makes sense. Gotta have some oversight, right?
Absolutely. And that's where this rule in the CA's playbook comes in Section 20. It's been a game changer.
Section 20, huh? What's so special about it?
Well, it basically lets any CA member hit the brakes on an appointee's confirmation. No questions asked.
Wow, that's, a pretty strong tool. I bet there have been some interesting cases where it's been used.
Oh, you bet. The paper talks about Senator Jambi Madrigal back in 2007. She used Section 20 to try to stop 25 military promotions.
25. Whoa, that's a lot. What was her reasoning there?
She claimed there wasn't enough regional representation in the promotions, even called it a Padrino system,
Padrino system meaning?
like favoritism, using your connections to get ahead.
Yeah.
So she was basically saying it wasn't a fair process.
Ah, I see. Calling out the good old boy network. I bet that caused a stir.
It did. Some senators called Section 20 tyrannical, said it gave one person way too much power.
I can see that side of it.
But others defended it as a crucial way to keep the president's power in check.
So is it a tool for good or just a way to play politics? That's a tough one.
It really is. And it gets even trickier when you throw in another tactic the paper talks about, the revolving door policy.
Okay, revolving door. Now that sounds ominous.
It's all about how short the terms are for many chiefs of staff in the Philippine military. We're talking less than a year in some cases.
Less than a year? How do you even get anything done with that kind of turnover?
Right. The research looked at 39 chiefs of staff from 1987 to 2021. The average time in office. A measly 342 days.
342 days, that's barely time to settle in.
Exactly. The paper quotes this defense analyst, Custodio, who says it's all about keeping ambitious generals happy and rewarding loyalty, instead of picking the best person for the job.
So more about control than actual effectiveness.
That's what Custodio argues. It's a stark contrast to leaders like Marcos Sr., who kept his trusted generals around for much longer, sometimes close to a decade.
Interesting. So you've got this rapid turnover on one hand, potential stagnation on the other. Tough balance to strike.
For sure. And this theme of balancing power is going to keep popping up as we delve deeper into this research.
Can't wait. This is getting good.
Buckle up, because next we'll uncover how this military influence reaches beyond just the armed forces themselves. You won't believe where it ends up.
So we've been talking about presidents appointing military leaders, but this paper goes a step further. It looks at this trend of former military officers ending up in civilian government roles.
Wait, so not just generals becoming defense secretary or something like that?
Nope. Think outside the typical military box.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Give me some specifics.
All right. The researchers looked at 30 cabinet appointments of former military folks, and guess what?
What?
Only 16 of those were to departments that had a direct link to defense.
So the rest were?
What?
Like education, infrastructure, stuff like that?
You got it. Things you wouldn't normally associate with military experience.
That's pretty wild. Is there, like, a reason for this?
Well, the paper talks about new professionalism in the military. It's this shift where they're not just focused on external threats anymore.
So more well-rounded, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. It includes internal security and even civilian management stuff.
So basically saying the military has the skills to handle all sorts of problems.
Kind of. And it's not just a Philippine thing either. It's happening globally. But it does raise questions about, the boundaries between civilian and military authority.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's good to have experienced leaders, but does it go too far?
That's the big question. The paper doesn't say this is good or this is bad. It just lays out the facts and lets you decide.
That's fair. What do you think, listeners? Is this trend a good thing or a cause for concern?
And remember, the Philippines has a history of, military involvement in politics.
Right.
Coups, martial law, things like that.
Oh, right. That definitely adds a whole other layer to it.
For sure. And speaking of layers, let's circle back to that hyper-constitutionalism thing for a sec.
Right. The whole using the Constitution to fight for power thing.
Yeah. The paper argues that both the president and the CA are playing this game with military appointments.
So they're both kind of manipulating the system.
Not manipulating exactly, but definitely pushing boundaries to get what they want. The president appoints, the CA tries to control, back and forth, back and forth.
High stakes stuff.
Definitely. And this research really dives deep. Legal documents, historical analysis, you name it.
Like we're watching this whole political chess match play out.
Exactly. And we're only just getting started. There's so much more to uncover as we keep unpacking this whole hyper-constitutionalism and the military thing.
This deep dive has been a real eye-opener. I never realized how much strategy goes into something like military appointment.
Me neither. It's like this constant power struggle playing out behind the scenes.
Right. It's easy to think of things like the Constitution as set in stone, but this research shows how they can be interpreted and used in different ways.
It definitely makes you think twice about things.
Absolutely. And speaking of thinking, this paper really asks some tough questions about the role of the military in government, not just in the Philippines, but everywhere.
Yeah. It challenges us to consider where the line is between civilian and military authority and whether that line is shifting.
Okay, so let's bring it all together. We started by looking at how presidents use military appointments to consolidate power, but also how the legislature tries to keep them in check.
Right. And we talked about that revolving door of chiefs of staff and what that might mean for stability and long-term planning.
And then there's that trend of appointing ex-military to all kinds of civilian positions. That really got me thinking.
It's definitely a trend worth paying attention to, especially with the Philippines' history of military involvement in politics.
Right. So where does this all leave us? The paper doesn't give us easy answers, but it does raise a crucial question.
Shoot.
Could this reliance on military figures in government actually weaken civilian control in the long run? Or is it a necessary adaptation to complex challenges?
Tough one. What do you think, listeners? Are we seeing a shift in the balance of power, or is this just how things work?
It's something to ponder for sure, and that's what makes this research so valuable. It sparks these important conversations and makes us think critically about the world around us.
Absolutely. The more we understand these dynamics, the better equipped we are to engage with them.
Well said. And on that note, I think it's time to wrap up this deep dive. Big thanks to our listeners for joining us on this fascinating journey into the world of Philippine politics.
Yeah, thanks for tuning in, everyone. Keep those brains buzzing, and we'll catch you next time.
Until then, keep exploring and keep asking questions.